rights are a social construction, product of the mind. Because of that, they are not inherent. And since this is the case, force is what is the practical applicator. And if men decided to, by force, take away women's rights, women cannot do anything about it. The opposite is not true. If women wanted to take away men's rights, and men didn't want to let them, they could not. And because of this force doctrine application, women's rights all come from men, not inherently from themselves.
All right, so what is going on here? Well, we got this video. Andrew Wilson triggers feminist who refuses to acknowledge she needs men. This is, of course, a Whatever clip from the Whatever podcast, and Andrew Wilson is debating this young feminist, and to be young and naive again. But let's dive in and see what this whole debate is about.
Yeah, so I'll give you my definition of patriarchy first. It's a historic definition. It means rule of the father. I often will short phrase this to from the father. Usually it operates around something which is patrilineal lineage rather than matrilineal lineage, though not always. You can have patriarchies where there's matrilineal lineage. You can find this in Judaism and other places like this. When I talk about patriarchy, and broadly speaking, at least in modernity and in the last 100 years, about men being in charge of general systems. We could just say men being in charge of general systems, head of the household, head of the family, things like this. My view is that patriarchy is always going to end up being the default, especially the more feminism there is. You'll push more people into the patriarchy role, and here's why. Because of force doctrine. Force doctrine is a doctrine which I came up with, which tries to describe a phenomenon which you yourself are going to have to concede is true. That half of the world right now, if men decide to, they can basically exterminate every single woman inside of their nations, and there's not a damn thing women can do about it. We can find this in most of the Middle Eastern nations. We can find this basically anywhere that we look, right? They can't actually do anything about it.
Well, that's a bit hyperbolic there. Women can fight back, and you might think, well, yeah, but Andrew just said men are stronger, and men are stronger. Yeah, right. But there are weapons, so women can pick up a gun and fight back. So they can do something about it, but they're still going to lose because, I mean, men can pick up bigger, heavier guns. They can run longer. They can carry those guns longer. They can move farther in a day than a woman can without the aid of tools, such as vehicles. And even then, it's just the case that men are going to have the greater stamina. They're going to have the greater strength. They're going to have the greater force overall. So we can fight back, but it's still very much one-sided, not in their favor.
Also, when it comes to rights, rights are a social construction, product of the mind. Because of that, they are not inherent. And since this is the case, force is what is the practical applicator. And if men decided to, by force, take away women's rights, women cannot do anything about it. The opposite is not true. If women wanted to take away men's rights, and men didn't want to let them, they could not. And because of this force doctrine application, women's rights all come from men, not inherently from themselves.
So, Andrew, again, is of course right here. However, according to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights comes from God. This is the Constitution of the United States of America. I believe that the Constitution, I could be wrong on this because I obviously don't know the laws of every other country, but the Constitution is either the only or one of the only, constitutions, founding documents for a country that says that you have rights that come from God. They're not from human beings. But until we prove there is a God, then, your rights come from other human beings upholding those. People want to argue and say that, and Tim Pool does this a lot. He wants to argue and say, if you're plopped down in the middle of the wilderness somewhere, what do you have the right to do? What can you do? Well, there is some leeway there because, you have the right to bodily autonomy, but you only have that right to bodily autonomy because we all agree that we don't want our right to bodily autonomy taken away, right? If there's somebody bigger and stronger than me, tougher than me in some way, and he says, I'm taking your bodily autonomy away from you, anti-woke warrior, then guess what? I'm losing my bodily autonomy. That's just how it is, right? It doesn't matter if there's a deity up there saying, hey, he has bodily autonomy, don't do that, unless and until that deity steps in and stops that other person from taking away my bodily autonomy, then this is a man-made concept, basically is what I'm getting at. Anyway, thank you for stopping by and supporting my channel. I do appreciate it. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. YouTube does unsubscribe people. You can find me on Rumble and on Twitter. Let's get back to this video.
Therefore, feminism is a lie. Complete lie. That's force doctrine. I don't know if you have anything to say about it.
Well, aside from the fact that that is genuinely a terrifying idea, I think that the idea that men could just take away our rights and wipe us away is why feminism is necessary, is because we are trying to get enough men, I suppose, on our side, if you think about it in terms of like a military occupation, so that that wouldn't happen, because I think that it is possible for men to take away our rights at a blanket pace. But I don't agree with your conclusion based off that premise, though. I don't believe that women inherently don't have rights that is given to us by men. And the reason why is because I believe that all human beings inherently should have equality and human dignity, which is although I'm not Catholic, it's a term that was very much focused on in my Catholic high school. I went to public school and then
But
Catholic
it's an
high school.
axiom.
About human dignity.
It's just axiomatic.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like important though to me, because I think that because the societies that we have created have necessitated the need, or have created the need for laws and for structure in government. And so there are many philosophers that have talked about how important it is to have government, right? But because of the fact that men can take it away does not mean that men thus give to us, right? Like, men are not gods. It is something that is inherent to each of us, that we should have the ability to live and self-govern, have autonomy. And I think the fact that men could take it away.
Notice you said should there. You should have the right to live and self-govern and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you should. I don't disagree with you. You should. There's a lot of things that you should do. We should recycle. We should be good stewards of the ecology of the planet Earth. We could get into a lot of shoulds out there. Then again, if Bubba over here says, hey, I'm bigger and stronger than you, I'm going to take away your bodily autonomy, there's nothing you can do about it. Bubba shouldn't do that, but if he wants to, there's a good thing that we have laws and we have weapons.
Actually goes to my point about how a lot of them do, and a lot of them try to take our autonomy and make us feel unsafe and harm us, which you were previously refuting, but actually seems like you agree with me on that it's a possibility for men to do that.
No, it's descriptively true. I'm not giving an ought, I'm giving a descriptive reality.
But because it's a descriptive reality,
the truth is that you appeal to patriarchy.
So he's talking about is versus ought. If you don't know, this is, I think Hume came up with is versus ought. He was a philosopher from a long time ago. If you want to look into that, go look into that. It's just a type of argument. It's a fallacy-based argument. It's doesn't really matter here. What he's saying is it's a description. Men are bigger and stronger than women. Subsequently, we can take away your rights. We all understand that we should have these certain rights, and so we give them to women too.
Patriarchy.
I have no idea what I have not said appeal to patriarchy. What are you talking about?
When you said the whole goal is to get more men on our side, you're appealing to a patriarchy.
Well, it's not the whole goal, but it is a goal. Yes, I should correct myself.
And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to appeal to the very demographic which can take away your rights at any time, conceding that if you do not have them on your side, you cannot maintain your rights. That is not ever true of men, which is why you'll always end up with a default patriarchy, especially the more feminists push. I don't know if you're looking at the modern world now.
It's the modern world, because it's not necessarily a default.
It's always going to be a default.
But in a lot of tribes, they were very matriarchal, and like women were at the head of the family.
There's never been a matriarchy in the world.
That is not true at all.
Give me one.
Okay, I will look it up for you.
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'll refute it. Watch.
Well, indigenous people largely have.
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'm going to refute it.
I think you should just use the term.
I think you should just use the term Indian. I don't see any problem with it at all.
Oh, I think they do.
I don't think so.
This is funny. They're arguing the semantics here. But this woman does not know what she's talking about. Native Americans, which is what I call them, Native Americans do use the term Indian to refer to themselves. The reason I stopped using the word Indian or American Indian is because I made friends with a bunch of Indians at one point in my life. For a few years, I was friends with like a dozen Indian guys, from India. And so I started thinking, oh, wait a second, these guys are actually Indian. So if I say the word Indian or American Indian, what am I really referring to? And I know there's Indian American and American Indian. But I think Native American is actually just a much more accurate way of thinking about Native Americans. Even though, yes, I know nobody's truly native to this part of the world. The human beings supposedly come out of Africa. And we can trace the lineages of Native Americans back through Asia. I understand all that. But it's a good term, and we all know what it means. It's not like I'm making something weird up like this. Anyway. Back to the video.
Indians themselves call themselves Indians often.
Indigenous people in the United States do not call themselves Indians.
Yes, they do. Just like black people call themselves black people, not African American. What are you talking about? Do you think that all black people call themselves African American?
This is a moot point, so I'm not going to even go into this.
Well, you're the one who wanted to tell police to say that I had to say Native American instead of Indian.
So basically, I'm pulling up the matriarchs for you. And there are obviously a number of societies that have thrived, and there's a whole document, but in China, in Costa Rica,
that have thrived. So she's looking at matriarchal societies around the world. And she's finding all these societies that have thrived. Let's see what she brings up here.
The Bree people.
Yeah, name one. Any of them that you think is a matriarchy.
Okay.
A matriarchal society.
They have a society with an estimated 12,000 to 35,000 members. That is a matriarchy. And that is BRI, Bree.
12,000 to 35,000. Ma'am, they are just, oh man, they're wrecking it, clearly. The city I live in right now has way more than 35,000 people. The city I grew up in, which is a smaller city than the one I live in now, has more than 35,000 people living in it. If I told you the name of the city, probably you've never heard of it. So 35,000 is not thriving.
in Costa Rica, or you could look at there's a Kenyan tribe that's Umoja that are all matriarchies. They have women at the helm that are leading their.
Why the Bribri tribe society is often described as matrilineal. It's not actually a matriarchy. Women are the heads of households responsible for passing down culture and land, but the men have the most important role as the authority officers of the tribe. They are the ones who defend, and they have chiefs too, male chief. That's not a matriarchy.
Well, I found a different article. We could just go back and forth all day.
Yeah, let's look at it.
So the Bribri, so this is the intercontinental cry. Bribri, I don't know if you speak Spanish, but Bribri un matriarcado moderno. So I speak a little bit, I'm not like fully fluent. But anyways, and they're talking about how the clan structure means that tribal lineage is passed down through the mother.
Yeah, matrilineally.
Yes, and also in the home, I know the difference.
But if something's matrilineal, doesn't make it a matriarchy.
I know, but they're saying that women in this article play a primary role in government as well.
Yeah, but not, see what you did there? You did a smuggle. They play.
Yeah, so hey, guess what? Women in the United States play a primary role in politics. And you might say, what are you talking about? Women are the bigger voting bloc. And then there's also female politicians. I don't know what the breakdown is, female politicians versus male politicians, but there's a lot of female politicians. And I know that a few years ago we were saying like there's more female governors now than there are male governors or something like that, more female mayors or something in the country than there are whatever. So I don't know what it was, but it was one of those positions. So women are a big deal in the United States government. And she's sitting here saying, oh, we live in a patriarchy. Well, not according to your definition. Your definition is women play a primary role in government, and they play a primary role in the government in the United States. So, whatever, man.
Play a primary role in government, that doesn't make it a matriarchy.
But it's a system. Do you know what a matriarchy is, though?
Yeah, it would be women broadly in charge of all of the systems.
It's a system of social structure where they hold a lot of power.
They hold the majority power.
And that's what
the decisions of the men are at their behest in any.
But that's what the article just said of the Bribri tribe. No, I don't know. Again, I just found a different article.
Any matriarchy,
I don't know if I should speak to what's going on.
Any matriarchy that I've ever investigated, which is supposedly a matriarchy, we find very quickly that men are in the prominent positions of authority on force, which means that any matriarchy is living at the behest of the men. That's it.
So is your point that...
So, but little research I've done into matriarchal societies that exist today, and they are all primitive societies. None of them are first world. None of them. The only one you could say is the United States. And that's just because men pushed so hard for so long to make this the greatest country in the world. And now women are stepping in and taking over. So you could say it's a matriarchy, and it's beginning to collapse. We're not there. I'm standing up and trying to fight against it, being like, hey, get women back in the kitchen where they belong, damn it. Because they're ruining the world. But nobody listens to me. Well, maybe some of you do, but most people don't listen to me. Think I'm an idiot. Anyway, back to the video.
Men are better than because they have brute force? Or like, what's your point that men should be in charge governmentally?
No, my point is I'm not giving an ought. We have to agree first to a descriptor. The descriptive truth is that it is in fact the case that women have to appeal to men for all of their rights, period, by your own admission. That's why you're trying to get them on your side. Because if you don't have them, they can basically cage women up if they wanted to, and there's nothing women can do about it.
Right, but that doesn't mean that men are therefore better or should be in charge. Like, I'm confused. Like, what's the actual...
And you know why? Because you're a man. The champagne of genders.
Thanks, Sheldon, for pointing out to me that men are actually better. But the reality is, Andrew is saying nothing about better or worse. He's just saying that men are stronger. Men are more physically capable. And men are actually more mentally capable, too. IQ tests show that men are slightly smarter than women on average. And the thing is, what can women do then? What can women bring to the table that is going to outdo men and then therefore give them the advantage in civilization? There's nothing. If the men are stronger and smarter, okay, you can't do anything to beat them. The only way that you're beating men is because we've allowed ourselves to be beaten. It's the same thing with this invasion at the southern border. It's only an invasion because we allow it to happen. An inferior force cannot overthrow a superior force unless the superior force allows it to happen. In the United States, it's a superior force compared to the immigrants that are coming in, the illegal immigrants. But we're letting it happen.
Actual point, like the conclusion that you're making
The point here is that men being in charge is obviously and clearly they're very benevolent because at any time they so choose, they can lock all women up. There's nothing they can do about it. And the reverse is not true, which is so interesting. You're literally at the mercy, women are at the mercy globally and always have been, of men. And yet we're monsterized and demonized by feminists. That's what we're literally considered demons by feminists. You did it by your own admission today with your own stats, trying to make us out to be sexually assaulting monsters. Didn't even know the counter stats.
Didn't say that. Never.
Yeah,
said
that's
that,
what it appears to be, though, from the onlookers Andrew's perspective.
I feel like you have these generic like talking points that you try to apply to feminists, but I haven't like really been very reactive or calling you names. I'm trying not to. I have, but
You have acted exactly like a feminist today, madame.
okay, but I feel
Okay,
like,
nobody's going to be confused about that at all.
All right.
The whole snobbery
I'm not insulted
towards
by that.
the whole snobbery towards authority. You're going to do what I want. The finger clap thing. You did the whole feminist trope, the entire thing.
Okay.
But what I would like is a refutation here.
Can I speak now?
Can you agree?
So this is a 3-hour debate that they were having. So the stuff he's referring to, it's not in here. I don't know where it's at.
feel like it's my time
Can
a
you
little
agree
bit.
that it is the case that women have to appeal to men for their rights and not the other way around?
I will not ever agree to the fact that we should appeal to men for our rights. I think that's an
that they
inherently
have to.
misogynistic
They have
question.
to.
Have to?
Have to.
No. Do
Okay,
not
well
agree.
then where do rights come from?
They should be inherent to every person, but again, I think I should be able to like
Inherent.
leave this.
You can make
Okay,
your- make
so
your
give me a
point.
second because
To be young and naive, like I was saying, she doesn't get what he's saying. It's not that you aren't deserving of rights. You are, of course. People deserve to not be violated, to have their body violated by another human being. That's immoral and illegal. What keeps women from suffering that is that men stand up and say, you have the right to not have that happen to you.
again, like you've just been a little bit insulting the last few minutes. So I feel like when that happens, it's just like a good change of pace is important. But
Well, I do need to keep it on the topic at hand, but
which again, where were we? Can you
Rights.
repeat the question?
Right. So I asked you where
asking
rights come from.
where rights come from, if you can
Yeah.
address that
Okay, but then I get
or
to speak.
respond.
More.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can.
But it's
okay.
on forced
You
doctrine
can
and rights.
respond.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think the fact that we're debating a topic that you came up with is a little bit strange personally, but I was
Why?
going to say that I think that rights are inherent. I think that they should be related to all people, just like the fact that we are human beings. We shouldn't have to appeal to any person for authority. And again, the fact that men are stronger, bigger, more powerful doesn't mean that they give or take away people's rights. I'm not religious necessarily, but I think if I was, I would probably tell you that I think God is the person that, relates and who gives people their human dignity and rights, but I think it's inherent. I think that we should all have the right to live and be free of violence. And I think that those who offend and try to put people in cages, those are the people that should be jailed. Like, I don't think that that's a blanket statement.
Yeah. So I would just, okay, you keep on saying rights should be inherent. That doesn't tell me anything about where rights come from. Where do rights come from? Where do we ascribe rights
Well, I think
to
that you're thinking
ourselves?
very like United States, like government centric.
Anywhere. You can pick anywhere on planet. I don't care where you pick.
Okay,
Where
so-
are rights coming from?
They are coming from the set of people that are in charge, the government. And to your point, that's the patriarchy.
Wow, she just totally torpedoed her whole argument right there. Yeah, it comes from the people who have the power saying you have these rights. To hell. That's what Andrew is saying.
However, I agree.
Okay.
So I concede to that point. However, I'm saying that does not mean that men, since they create the ability to give people like rights and take it away, that doesn't mean that men it should be that way. It shouldn't. I don't know if that makes
So
sense.
men have been guaranteeing your rights the entire time you've been alive.
No, that's definitely not true.
Well, I don't understand. I thought that you just
But
said
also, like-
rights come from the government.
but also,
The government
like-
is the patriarchy. The
but-
patriarchy then is giving you rights, right?
Right, but like the government isn't inherently the government is influenced by patriarchy, but it's not like all men making decisions like in the past it was.
Would you say it's mostly in charge by men?
Yeah, but again, like I think that your points that you're making are very misogynistic. Like I think the point of what you're saying
Listen.
is like we should be grateful to.
I think the points you're making are very misandrist. I mean, that doesn't tell us
But I don't hate
anything.
men, so that's not a very good
don't hate
insult.
women.
Okay, but your question inherently is rooted in the fact that you think that there is male superiority and that men are in charge.
Descriptively, men are stronger than women, yeah? Descriptively.
Yes,
You're not going to argue that point, right?
on average, I suppose. Yeah.
Now, on average. Well, I mean, it's a strong average, though.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a strong average, though. Yeah, I'll say. This woman here, I don't know how tall she is. I'm assuming that she's around 5'6" tall. That's what she looks like. I don't know. Obviously, she could be much shorter or significantly taller than that. I don't know. I'm guessing that she outweighs me because she does not look like she's in very good shape. I'm betting that she weighs more than 152 pounds, which is what I weigh as of today, which is almost the heaviest I've ever been. And I'm betting that I can bench press more than she can. And women argue this with me. Oh, you can, you don't know. Women are strong. Like, no, look, I am stronger than you. Just my muscles work better than yours do. And I have a musculoskeletal condition, which actually makes me weaker overall. That's just how much of an advantage men have over women. It's insane. I'm not big, and I have this condition that I was born with, and I'm significantly older than she is. But still, I punch a lot harder than she does. And that's what Andrew's talking about.
I mean, teenage soccer teams are beating, female pro player teams, right?
Sure,
You agree
yes.
that that's the case? Okay, great. So if that's the case, and we can agree, and you agree that the governments of the world are patriarchal, then you have to concede that the patriarchy is giving you your rights right now.
I will never concede that. And the reason why is because I think that is rooted in the idea that women should be grateful. Like, you're telling me that I should essentially be grateful to you for the fact that I'm not in a cage right now and that someone's not assaulting me as we speak. Like, that does not mean
No,
that
how
I
about
should
just
be
your
grateful to
your
you.
right to free speech? And
No, that's not what he's saying. He's not saying you should be grateful to men. Nobody's saying that you should be grateful to men. You should be grateful to men. I'm saying it now. Yeah, you should be. But I don't live my life going, oh man, women are just ingrates, a bunch of ingrates. No, I am happy. I'm happy to be of service. I'm happy to provide women with the protection they need should a bad actor come up and try to hurt them in some way. Yeah, I would step in and be like, look, leave her alone.
And the fact that it's enforced by men, the patriarchy is the ones giving you that by your own admission.
Listen, so my theory is the way it should be. This is what I think. This is the way that it was before we had colonization and all the imperialism and stuff. There's a blanket statement, right? Or there's a blanket right to life, to autonomy, to all these things, right? That are just given to you by the nature of being human. And there are certain entities and people and oppressive regimes that then come in.
Okay, so do animals have that same right? There are millions of vegans across the world who believe that, and therefore they don't eat animal flesh. So why is it that humans have that right, but other creatures don't? Because I'm betting that she eats meat. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she's a vegetarian or a vegan. Maybe. I don't know. She does not understand where your rights come from. Yeah, you can sit here and say, oh, everybody deserves the right to life because that's just the way it is. Every human being deserves to live. Really? Everyone? What about Andrew Tate? What about Trump? What about Hitler? Mussolini? What about the kid toucher that lives down the street? That's the problem with this, everybody has the right to life. Are you sure about that? Because in the United States, we practice capital punishment. Other countries do it too. So you got to think about all these things. And I don't think she is. I think she's just thinking everybody just deserves the right to life. And she probably would come back at me and say, well, I mean, unless you're committing immoral acts, obviously, but every human is born with the right to live. Okay, well, when do we determine that they are mature enough, intelligent enough, whatever enough to be subject to capital punishment then, if they act immorally? And what is it that is immoral enough for them to be removed from the world? Because if you go to the Middle East, it's being homosexual. But if you said that to her here, like, oh, we should just end the homosexuals here, she would be livid. And she probably is homosexual. I don't know. Anyway.
And they tried to take those things away from you.
Yeah,
now,
warring tribe theory.
Well, because they give you those things, or because the government gives you the right to exist now, right? Doesn't mean it's a benevolent doesn't mean the patriarchy is benevolent because it is currently giving me these rights, and I'm not like sitting and trapped in my house like I am in a different country.
What would make it malevolent?
What would make it malevolent?
Yeah.
I think in places like
I'm talking
Afghanistan,
about here in the United States, which is a patriarchy by your own admission, giving you rights. What would make it malevolent?
I think that there are a lot of current things that are malevolent, like in legislation and things like that are, like attacks on bodily autonomy and like the overturning, like the Dobbs decision or the.
But you would
overturning
consider
Roe v.
your
Wade.
First Amendment a benevolent right, your Third Amendment,
But
your Fifth Amendment.
I think these things are all inherent. I don't understand. Like, just because it's written by the government doesn't mean that it should inherently be.
It can't be
benevolent.
Listen, that's a contradiction. You can't say it's inherent and the government gives them to us.
No, the government.
That's a contradiction.
The government does, but it doesn't mean anything. Like, we should already have these things. Like, just like if I.
How do you have them? How do you have them absent a government?
Being. You should just be able to walk around and be free.
How? How do you have that without force? How?
I mean,
how is it even possible?
I think you're looking at it.
Yeah, the libertarians would say, yeah, that's the way it should be. But the fact of the matter is you're going to have people who disagree with you on what is okay to do and what is not okay to do in a libertarian system. We got people out here racing motorcycles up and down my street at 8 o'clock in the morning. I work nights. That's not okay, if you ask me. Okay? In fact, I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't want to hear your damn motorcycle at all. And we do have the technology to make motorcycles completely silent. Well, nearly completely silent. So you're going to run into these problems when you deal with libertarianism chaos theory. People are just going to not get along. You're going to have a lot of people butting heads, and then you're going to have to set up a system of government, a system of laws. And that's going to be enforced by men who are bigger and stronger than women.
Through a lens of like imperialism, and I don't think that like force was always necessary. It hasn't always been necessary to conquer other people.
Why do you keep saying I'm looking at it through a lens of? I literally told you my lens of force doctrine, explained it descriptively. It has nothing to do with imperialism. It has to do with this. You're walking around and there's no government. If you're walking around, there's no government. Where do your rights come from then?
Okay, this is just like such a silly question.
Please answer the question.
Okay, so if there's no government and I'm walking around, my right to be alive, my right to find a partner,
Can someone come around and kill you?
Yes, but in that case, there have historically always been ways of punishing people who take those away. So the people who take them away are
like
offenders.
Hold on, just let her finish.
A government? Go ahead.
Hold on, Andrew.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The people who take those things away from you, if they don't decide to take it away, it doesn't mean that they're good, right? So like, a really horrible example that for a lot of women is true is if I am a woman and I have not had intercourse with anybody and a man is my friend and he decides that he's not going to take my virginity from me, does that mean he is a good person inherently by not assaulting me? No, it doesn't, because that should be the standard, right? And so if someone comes in and they take it away and then they tell me that they can or they can't in the future, right? That's essentially to me what you're saying is just because the government is giving me the right to walk around and have this conversation with you today means that I should be thankful and I should, not be concerned with things, and that you guys are actually benevolent. The patriarchy is benevolent because I'm not in a cage, because I'm not being assaulted.
Yeah, that's not what's being
So
said.
that
But
is-
anyway, can you answer my question though? If there's no government, where do your rights come from?
I think we've already been over this. I think
No,
you've asked me quite
you
a few
didn't actually
times.
answer. Listen, what you did. Was
I've already told you human
What-
dignity. So
Well, human dignity. You can't account for dignity in a secular worldview. What is dignity? It's just whatever you think dignity is. So tell me this real quick. You have rights. They're
okay,
inherent.
are you talking about legal, moral, or human? Let's omit legal, right? Because I'm talking about a hypothetical
Literally
society.
any.
Okay, moral and human rights.
Yeah.
And for me, it's
Yeah.
rooted in the philosophical natural law.
Natural
theory.
law is Catholic. You don't believe in Catholicism. You would have to have God to back up natural law.
Okay, but that is what I developed my beliefs around because I used to believe in
No,
God.
that's it. If you don't appeal to God for your natural rights, you're making a naturalist fallacy.
Okay, I
that's
believe in
a
God.
fallacious argument.
How do you know that I don't believe in God?
Because you told me.
Okay, well, I think this is like a really ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous? So where do you get your rights from if they're not from God?
Okay, so again, I still subscribe to the human rights theory, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If we're not going to go talk about God or naturalism, right? Which is that every human being has universal, inalienable rights that are fundamental to each person.
Yeah.
And so this is what the UN subscribes to and stuff like that, regardless of whether there is a government in place or not. So is that sufficient to you?
No, that's an axiom. So all you're just saying is, I think we have inherent rights because I think we have inherent rights.
I think we have inherent rights because we are human beings who deserve to be treated with compassion, love, and respect. And I don't think you think that. So
Yeah, but
that's pretty wild.
But the question comes in here.
No, I'm sure that she said, I don't think Andrew thinks that. I'm sure that he does think that human beings deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. They have the right to life, etc. But his point is, who enforces these ideas of rights? Look, there are ancient cultures, they used to sacrifice human beings. Why don't we do that today? Because we think that everybody deserves the right to life. Okay, if a group came into the country and took it over and said, we're going to start sacrificing human beings, well, then we better be bigger and stronger than that group if we want to continue to have a world where there's no sacrifices.
Let's say that a group of people doesn't believe in these inherent human rights, right? They don't believe in them.
I mean, there are definitely groups that have.
Yeah, they just don't believe in these inherent.
But for certain people.
Yeah, they just don't. So what is it that protects those inherent rights for you?
Well, you're right. There is typically like a system in place of
Force?
It's not force per se.
All force, right?
But
name anything that's
but
not
like
force
there's a
that
way to like
protects your rights.
isolate those people.
With
yeah.
what? Force?
I mean, not necessarily. Not
What
every
else could you
arrest is
isolate
made
them
through
with if they don't
force.
want to be isolated?
Well, not every arrest is made through force, right? Like they might.
Yeah,
just,
well, actually, all arrests are made through the implicit threat of force. Either you come with me or else, right?
Sure.
So that would be force, right? You would agree with that? The implicit?
Yeah, I mean, just this inherent topic to me is very, just like violent and seems like a moot point. Like, but I mean, I feel like we talked this through.
No, I haven't talked it through yet.
But you can continue. I mean, I don't really have much else to say
Yeah, I
on
know,
this.
but
I've already like
it's a
clarified.
critique of your worldview so that we can understand who you're appealing to for these so-called rights you believe everybody has. In this case,
Sure.
it sounds like you're banking on force from men to protect your rights.
I'm not
How are you
banking on
not?
that.
How are you not banking on the force of men to protect your rights? If you say they're inherent, but all these inherent rights require force.
Well, also men is a generalization. I mean, again, there are a lot of people who are currently working to enforce the system of government that we have. It's not just men, but okay.
They all rely on male force, don't they?
I just told you that wasn't true. I mean,
Okay, can you tell me how that?
I just told you that's not true. But it is true. The only reason that women are in positions of power in the United States is because men allowed it. Before, they didn't take on governmental positions. They might have had like local community power in some way, especially in a family. They're going to have power. If they're a single mom, they're going to have power over their children. But a lot of this was, hey, look, we need to have a man in the household taking care of the kid, taking care of the woman. You know, women, if their husband died, a lot of times a male relative, a brother, an uncle, somebody would step in, a son would step in and be like, look, I'm the authority figure now. Because my mother is a tall woman, she's 5'10". I'm shorter than her. But my brother is tall. He's 6'2". He was 6'2", I don't know, when he was 19, 18, something like that. Do you think that when he was 17, still a child, that my mother could have forced him to do anything he didn't want to do? No. He was young, athletic, strong. I mean, he wasn't like practicing athlete, but he was always running around in the woods during the summers. Yeah, you think that my mother could have stood up to him? 17-year-old who is, I don't know, 6 feet tall, young, strong, stronger than her? Yeah, I don't think so.
That's not true. Like,
Well-
what agency of government doesn't rely on male force?
No. My point is, it's not all exclusively men. There are men and women and everyone else as well that work to protect people here. Like,
yeah.
like in the army, it's not like if you're using force, right? The army isn't just male troops. So like you're saying male.
Yeah, there's women who aren't allowed in combat for the most part, almost ever, unless it's by accident, who are in the military as paymasters and things like this, but they're not the executors of force. There's not female armies being fielded to
I mean,
protect
again,
people's
like
rights.
I'm not super interested in this line of questioning because it just seems like
Why do you
inherently
think I care
misogynistic
if
question.
you're interested?
I like how she goes back to, I'm not interested in this, so I don't want to talk about it. She's losing the argument, and she can't argue her points, of course. She can't stand to have Andrew call her out. This is what happens when you deal with people who don't want to listen to reason, don't want to act logically, don't want to be reasonable and be good faith. And she's showing some of that, like she wants to be that, but mostly she just wants to sit on this idea that, look, force is not required. I have innate human rights just because I'm human. I was born with them. And no, there are cultures where you wouldn't have had those human rights, where you are born a slave. Today, there are cultures where you are born a slave. You don't have the right to freedom. You're the property of somebody else. So tell me how you're born with these rights as a human being when there's people around the world who think, no, you can be born as property of another human being. It's ridiculous. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.